The ancient curse had marked him from birth, a king destined to rule alone, his wolf forever caged by dark magic woven into his bloodline. For 27 years, Kael Thorne had accepted this fate with iron resolve, building his kingdom on strength rather than the mate bond that governed his kind. But when a forgotten bloodline awakened in the dungeons beneath his castle, releasing a scent of wild jasmine and moonlight that pierced through centuries of enchantment, the Alpha King discovered that some bonds were forged by forces older and more powerful than any curse, and she, the girl they'd condemned as powerless, would either be his salvation or the final piece in his destruction. The Silvercrest Kingdom existed between worlds, a realm where ancient magic pulsed through obsidian towers and moonstone streets, where werewolves ruled with primal authority tempered by centuries of civilization. Here, in the heart of the eternal forest, the supernatural world thrived in shadows the human realm could never perceive. Elara Ashwood had lived her entire 19 years within these shadows, though never truly part of them. The morning sun filtered through the arched windows of her chamber in the Ashwood estate, casting patterns across stone walls that had housed her family's declining bloodline for generations. She stood before an ornate mirror, her reflection showing a young woman whose beauty carried an ethereal quality, silver blonde hair that cascaded past her shoulders, eyes the color of storm clouds, skin pale as moonlight. Yet beneath that delicate exterior lay a truth that had defined her existence. She was wolfless. In a world where one's wolf determined status, power, and worth, Elara was an anomaly, a shame, a disappointment, wrapped in silk and good breeding. "You must look perfect today," her mother's voice cut through her thoughts as Lady Ashwood swept into the chamber, her own wolf's presence radiating the authority Elara would never possess. "Lord Cassius arrives this afternoon to finalize the arrangement." The arrangement. The words tasted like ash in Elara's mouth. Cassius Blackthorne, heir to one of the most powerful packs in Silvercrest, a wolf whose lineage traced back to the kingdom's founding. Handsome, wealthy, influential, and utterly repulsed by weakness. "Mother, perhaps we should reconsider," Elara began, but Lady Ashwood's sharp gesture silenced her. "Reconsider?" Her mother's laugh held no warmth. "Child, you are 20 years old and wolfless. Do you understand what that means? You should be grateful that Lord Cassius is willing to overlook your deficiency. His family needs our ancient bloodline to strengthen their claim to the Northern Territories. You need his protection. It is a practical arrangement. Practical. Not loving. Not chosen. Practical." Elara's fingers traced the silver pendant at her throat, a family heirloom passed down through Ashwood women for centuries. The metal always felt warm against her skin, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Her grandmother had given it to her before she died, whispering words Elara had never understood. "When the moon calls, answer. Your wolf sleeps, but she is not gone." But years had passed and no wolf had emerged. No transformation had come during her first full moon, or any moon after. She remained human in a world of beasts, powerless in a realm built on supernatural strength. The Ashwood estate bustled with preparation throughout the day. Servants polished silver until it gleamed, arranged flowers whose petals shimmered with faint magical luminescence, prepared a feast worthy of impressing the Blackthorne heir. Elara moved through it all like a ghost, her thoughts distant. She found herself in the estate's library as afternoon shadows lengthened, a sanctuary of ancient texts and forbidden knowledge. Her fingers drifted across leather spines, settling on a tome she'd read countless times, The Lost Bloodlines of Silvercrest. The book spoke of wolves whose power had been sealed away by ancient curses, of dormant abilities that could awaken under specific circumstances, of bonds so powerful they could break enchantments that had lasted centuries. Fairy tales, her tutors had called them, desperate fantasies. But Elara had always felt something stirring beneath her skin, a presence that watched through her eyes, that growled softly when danger approached, that yearned for freedom she couldn't provide. "Still hiding in books, I see." The voice made her spine stiffen. Cassius Blackthorne stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space with predatory grace. He was undeniably handsome, sharp features, dark hair, eyes like amber that glowed with his wolf's presence. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy. "Lord Cassius?" Elara set the book aside, offering a curtsy that felt like surrender. "I didn't realize you'd arrived." "Clearly." He moved into the library with the confidence of someone who had never been denied anything. Your mother is looking for you, though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised to find you here, surrounded by stories of things that will never be." The cruelty in his tone was casual, almost bored, as if her pain was too insignificant to warrant real attention. "I was just dreaming of having a wolf?" Cassius picked up the book she'd been reading, his lip curling in disdain. "How pathetic. You do understand what our arrangement is, don't you, Elara? You provide the Ashwood bloodline. I provide protection and status. You will bear my children, manage my household, and stay out of pack politics. In return, I won't cast you out to survive as a wolfless omega, in a world that would devour you whole." Each word landed like a blow. This was her future, a gilded cage where she would be tolerated, not treasured. Used, not loved. "I understand," she whispered, hating the weakness in her voice. "Good." Cassius moved closer, his hand catching her chin, tilting her face up. His touch was cold despite the warmth of his skin. "You are beautiful. I'll grant you that. And your bloodline, though weakened, still carries ancient magic. Our children will be powerful, that's all that matters. Not her thoughts, not her dreams, not her heart, just her bloodline and her womb." He released her abruptly, turning toward the door. "The formal announcement will be made tonight at dinner. Wear something that doesn't make you look quite so fragile. I prefer my future mate to at least appear strong, even if she isn't." When he left, Elara's legs finally gave out. She sank into a chair, her hands trembling. The pendant at her throat burned suddenly hot, and for a moment, just a fleeting instant, she thought she heard a voice that wasn't her own. Not him. Never him. Wait for the moon. Wait for the call. But when she pressed her hand to the pendant, there was only silence and the familiar ache of loneliness that had been her constant companion. That evening, dressed in a gown of silver silk that made her look like moonlight given form, Elara descended the grand staircase to where Silvercrest's elite had gathered. The great hall glittered with supernatural beauty, wolves whose eyes glowed within a fire, whose movements carried predatory grace, whose very presence spoke of power she would never possess. Cassius waited at the bottom of the stairs, offering his arm with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. As she placed her hand on his sleeve, Elara felt the weight of her future settling around her shoulders, like chains made of duty and desperation. The announcement would come soon. The binding would follow, and she would spend the rest of her life as a beautiful ornament in a world where she would never truly belong. But as the moon rose beyond the windows, full and impossibly bright, the pendant at her throat pulsed with sudden heat. And somewhere deep inside, something that had slept for 19 years began to stir. The cage was closing, but perhaps, just perhaps, the lock had never been as secure as everyone believed. The grand lunar hall of Silvercrest stood as a testament to werewolf majesty, a cathedral of moonstone and silver, where the most sacred ceremonies of their kind took place. Tonight, it blazed with ethereal light as hundreds of supernatural beings gathered for the bonding announcement, a ritual that would formally declare Elara and Cassius's engagement before the entire kingdom. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs as she stood in the preparation chamber, surrounded by attendants who fussed over her gown, a masterpiece of white silk embroidered with silver thread that caught the light like captured starlight. Her hair had been woven with moonflowers, their petals releasing a faint luminescence that made her appear almost otherworldly. "You look like a queen," her mother said, though her eyes held more calculation than affection. "The Blackthorns will have no cause for complaint." Through the chamber's windows, Elara could see the full moon hanging impossibly large in the sky. Its light seemed to call to something deep within her, making her skin prickle with unfamiliar energy. The pendant at her throat burned hot enough that she had to resist the urge to tear it away. "It's time," Lady Ashwood announced as the ceremonial bells began to chime. The walk to the grand hall felt like a march to execution. Elara's hands trembled as she clutched a bouquet of silver roses, flowers that only grew in Silvercrest's enchanted gardens, their thorns said to draw blood that could seal magical contracts. The massive doors opened, and the assembled crowd turned as one. Hundreds of glowing eyes fixed upon her, amber, gold, green, silver, each pair belonging to a wolf whose power she could feel pressing against her skin like a physical weight. She was drowning in their collective strength, suffocating under the reminder of everything she lacked. Cassius waited at the altar, resplendent in formal black adorned with the Blackthorne crest. Beside him stood his father, Lord Thaddeus Blackthorne, whose presence commanded the room with brutal authority. And next to Cassius, wearing a gown of deep crimson that clung to her curves, stood Vivian Nightshade, daughter of the Southern Pax Alpha, and the woman whose hand had been entwined with Cassius's when Elara entered. Something cold twisted in Elara's stomach. She forced herself to walk forward, each step echoing in the suddenly too quiet hall. The crowd parted, creating a path lined with judgment and curiosity. Whispers followed her like shadows. Wolfless. Such a waste of ancient blood. The Blackthorns must be desperate. Elara reached the altar, her eyes meeting Cassius's. For a moment, she thought she saw something like guilt flicker across his features. Then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. High Priestess Morgana, an ancient wolf whose silver hair fell to her waist and whose eyes held the wisdom of centuries, raised her hands. The crowd fell silent. We gather under the full moon to witness the bonding announcement between Cassius Blackthorne, heir of the Northern Territories, and Elara Ashwood, last daughter of the ancient bloodline. Her voice carried supernatural resonance that made the air itself vibrate. This union will strengthen our kingdom, joining two noble houses in... I cannot do this. Cassius's voice cut through the ceremony like a blade. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Elara's blood turned to ice. What? Cassius stepped back, his jaw tight. I cannot bind myself to a wolfless mate. I have tried to accept it, tried to see past this deficiency, but I cannot condemn my bloodline to weakness. The words hit like physical blows. Elara swayed, her vision blurring at the edges. Cassius, Lord Thaddeus growled, his wolf rising in his eyes. We discussed this. The arrangement was a mistake. Cassius turned to Vivian, taking her hand. Vivian Nightshade is my true choice. She is powerful, her wolf is strong, and together we will produce heirs worthy of the Blackthorne name. Vivian's smile was triumphant, cruel. I'm sorry, Elara, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. But surely you understand a pack needs strength, and you have none to offer. The hall exploded into chaos. Voices rose in shock, outrage, excitement. Elara stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet falling from nerveless fingers. The silver roses scattered across the floor, their petals bruising. This is an outrage! Lady Ashwood's voice cut through the noise. A contract was made. The Ashwood bloodline is worthless without a wolf to carry it. Cassius interrupted, his amber eyes finally meeting Elara's. What she saw there was worse than hatred. It was pity mixed with disgust. Look at her. She's barely more than human. I would be shackling myself to dead weight. Dead weight. The words echoed in Elara's mind, each repetition driving deeper into her heart. You knew, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You knew you were going to do this. That's why you came early. Why you were so cruel in the library. You wanted me to know exactly how worthless you think I am. Cassius had the grace to look away. It's not personal. Not personal. Elara's voice rose, and she was dimly aware that the entire hall had fallen silent, every supernatural being watching her humiliation. You brought me here, in front of the entire kingdom, to publicly reject me, to make sure everyone knew that I am not worthy. How is that not personal? Because it's true, Vivian interjected, stepping forward. Her wolf's presence pressed against Elara like a suffocating blanket. You are not worthy. You never were. Did you really think someone like Cassius would bind himself to a wolfless nothing? You were a temporary convenience, a bloodline to be used, but I can give him everything you cannot. Power, strength, true partnership. The cruelty in her words was deliberate, designed to wound, and it succeeded. Elara felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart, but something deeper. The pendant at her throat suddenly blazed with heat, so intense she gasped. The moonlight streaming through the hall's windows seemed to concentrate on her, growing brighter, more focused. Elara? Her mother's voice sounded distant. What's happening? Pain lanced through Elara's body, sharp, burning, transformative. She fell to her knees, her hands pressing against the cold marble floor. The whispers started again, louder now, tinged with fear and fascination. Is she shifting? Impossible, she's wolfless. Look at her eyes. Elara raised her head, and the crowd gasped collectively. Her storm-grey eyes had begun to glow with silver light, bright as the moon itself. Power, raw, ancient, terrifying, surged through her veins like liquid fire. The pendant shattered, its pieces scattering across the floor. And with its breaking, something that had been locked away for 19 years, finally, violently awakened. A howl tore from Elara's throat. Not human, not entirely wolf, but something between. Something primal. The sound shattered windows, made the ancient stones of the hall tremble, sent wolves stumbling backward with their hands over their ears. When the sound faded, Elara remained on her knees, gasping. She hadn't shifted, not fully, but power radiated from her in waves that made even the strongest wolves in the room take involuntary steps back. What is she?" someone whispered. High Priestess Morgana moved forward, her ancient eyes wide with something that looked like recognition and fear. "The Ashwood bloodline," she breathed. "The legends were true. She carries the blood of the first wolves, the original shifters whose power was sealed away because it was too dangerous, too wild to control." Elara looked up at Cassius, at Vivienne, at all the faces staring at her with shock and fear. The humiliation still burned, but beneath it now was something else. Something that growled and snarled and demanded recognition. "You're right," she said, her voice carrying an echo that hadn't been there before, as if two voices spoke as one. "I am not worthy. Not of you, Cassius Blackthorne. Not of this mockery of a bonding. Not of a life spent as someone's convenient bloodline." She stood, and wolves twice her size flinched. "But you made a mistake tonight. You awakened something you should have left sleeping." The moonlight intensified, and for just a moment a massive shadow appeared behind Elara, the silhouette of a wolf, larger than any in the hall, its eyes burning with silver fire. Then it was gone, and Elara was just a young woman in a torn wedding gown, standing alone before hundreds of witnesses to her humiliation. "This engagement is ended," she said quietly, "and I am leaving." She walked toward the doors, her head high despite the tears streaming down her face. The crowd parted before her like water, none daring to touch her, to stop her. As she reached the exit, she heard Cassius call out, "Where will you go? You have nothing without your family's protection." Elara paused, looking back one final time. "Then I will have nothing, but at least it will be mine." She stepped into the night, into the moonlight, into an uncertain future. Behind her, the grand lunar hall erupted into chaos. And deep in the eternal forest, in a castle built of shadow and ancient magic, an Alpha King who had lived under a curse for 27 years suddenly lifted his head, his nostrils flaring. Wild jasmine and moonlight. The scent pierced through his curse like a blade through silk, and for the first time in his cursed life, Kael Thorne's caged wolf stirred. The eternal forest lived up to its name. Ancient trees whose roots delved deep into magical ley lines, their canopies so thick that even moonlight struggled to penetrate. Elara stumbled through the undergrowth, her ruined gown catching on thorns, her bare feet bleeding from sharp stones she couldn't see in the darkness. She had been walking for hours, driven by instinct more than direction. Behind her, Silvercrest's lights had faded to nothing. Ahead lay only shadow and the unknown. When she finally collapsed against a massive oak, her body gave out completely. The power that had surged through her in the grand hall had receded, leaving her hollow and trembling. She pressed her hands against the rough bark, trying to ground herself in something real. What am I? The question echoed in the silence. The pendant's destruction had unleashed something, but she didn't understand what. She could still feel it coiled inside her, a presence that was both foreign and intimately familiar, watching, waiting. "You shouldn't be here alone, child." Elara's head snapped up. An old woman emerged from the shadows, moving with a grace that belied her apparent age. She wore robes of deep forest green, and her eyes, one silver, one gold, held ancient wisdom that made Elara's breath catch. "Who are you?" Elara whispered. "I am called Thalia. I am a keeper, one who guards the old knowledge, the forgotten truths." The woman settled onto a fallen log with a sigh. "And you, Elara Ashwood, are exactly where you need to be. How do you know my name? I've been watching your bloodline for generations, waiting for the seal to break." Thalia's mismatched eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. "Your grandmother was my student once. She knew what you carried inside you. That pendant wasn't just jewelry. It was a binding seal, placed on you at birth to suppress your wolf until you were strong enough to control her." Elara's mind reeled. Your mother feared what you might become. The Ashwood bloodline descends from the first wolves, the original shifters who walked between worlds, whose power was so immense it threatened to tear reality apart. Most bloodlines diluted over centuries, the power fading to manageable levels. But occasionally it resurfaces in full force. Thalia leaned forward. You are one of those rare occurrences. Your wolf isn't absent, child. She's been sleeping, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The humiliation, Elara breathed. The emotional trauma broke the seal. Partially, but it was also the full moon your age. 19 is significant in old magic. And something else. Thalia's expression grew grave. There is another in this forest. One whose curse resonates with your power. Your awakening called to him, just as his presence is drawing your wolf to the surface. Before Elara could respond, a howl split the night. Deep, resonant, filled with authority that made every instinct in her body snap to attention. It wasn't a call of aggression, but of territory, of power, of challenge. The Alpha King, Thalia said quietly. Kael Thorne, ruler of the Shadow Court. His castle lies at the heart of the eternal forest, and you've wandered directly into his territory. I should leave. You cannot. Not yet. Thalia stood, offering her hand. Your wolf is emerging, Elara, but the process is incomplete. Without guidance, without control, you could lose yourself to the beast. I can teach you, but you must trust me. Come. Elara had no other options. She took the offered hand. Thalia's sanctuary was a cottage that seemed to grow from the forest itself. Walls of living wood, a roof of woven branches, windows that glowed with soft amber light. Inside, it was warm and filled with the scent of herbs and old magic. Over the following days, Thalia became the mentor Elara had never known she needed. Your wolf is not separate from you, Thalia explained as they sat in a clearing bathed in moonlight. She is you. Your instincts, your strength, your truth unfiltered by human fear and social constraint. The first wolves understood this. They didn't shift between forms, they embodied both simultaneously. Elara closed her eyes, reaching inward as Thalia had taught her. There a presence that pulsed with silver light, powerful and wild and utterly hers. Hello, she thought tentatively. The response was immediate. A surge of warmth, of recognition, of fierce protectiveness. Images flashed through her mind, running through moonlit forests, the taste of freedom, the thrill of the hunt, and underneath it all, a yearning for something she couldn't name. Mate, the wolf whispered. Our mate is near. Elara's eyes snapped open. She says our mate is close. Thalia's expression was knowing. The Alpha King. Your awakening called to him because his curse is breaking. For 27 years, Kael Thorne has been unable to shift. His wolf locked away by dark magic cast by a rival pack. He has ruled through strength of will alone, building his kingdom without the bond that defines our kind. But your power, first wolf power, is unraveling his curse. I don't understand how. True mates are rare, child. When they exist, their souls recognize each other across any barrier. Your wolf knows his, even if neither of you has fully met. Thalia's voice softened. But be warned. Kael Thorne is not like Cassius Blackthorn. He is harder, colder, shaped by decades of isolation and curse. He will not welcome this bond easily. That night, Elara dreamed. She stood in a castle courtyard built of black stone and shadow. Before her stood a man whose presence dominated the space, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his collar and eyes like molten silver. Power radiated from him in waves that made her wolf purr with recognition and desire. Who are you? His voice was deep, commanding, edged with suspicion. Elara. She stepped closer, drawn by an invisible thread. Who are you? Kael Thorne, Alpha King of the Shadow Court. His eyes narrowed. You're the one. The scent that's been driving me mad for days. Wild jasmine and moonlight. I didn't mean to intrude on your territory. You didn't intrude. You were called. He moved closer, and she could see the tension in his frame, the way he held himself rigidly controlled. What are you? Your scent is unlike any wolf I've encountered. I'm still figuring that out. His hand reached out, almost touching her face, then dropped. This is a dream, a manifestation of the bond trying to form. His expression hardened. It cannot happen. I am cursed, unable to shift, unable to complete a mate bond. Whatever you think you feel, whatever your wolf believes, it's impossible. What if it's not? Elara heard herself say. What if we're meant to break each other's curses? Kael's laugh was bitter. "I don't believe in fairy tales, little wolf. I believe in power, strategy, and survival. Bonds are weaknesses. Mates are vulnerabilities. I have ruled alone for 27 years, and I will continue to do so." "You're afraid," Elara realized, "not of the curse, but of hope." His eyes flashed dangerously. "You know nothing about me. I know you're lonely. I know you've built walls so high that even your own wolf can't reach you anymore. I know because I've done the same thing." She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his dream form. "I was told my entire life that I was worthless without a wolf. I built my identity around that absence, and now that she's emerging, I'm terrified of what it means." Something shifted in Kael's expression, a crack in the armor. "If we pursue this bond, it will destroy us both. My enemies will use you against me. Your power will attract those who would exploit it. We are better apart." "Maybe," Elara agreed, "or maybe we're stronger together." Before he could respond, the dream shattered. Elara woke to find Thalia standing over her, urgency in her ancient eyes. "Get up. The Alpha King's guards are coming. He's sensed your presence in his territory and is sending wolves to investigate. You must meet him properly, not as a trespasser, but as an equal." "I'm not ready." "You will never be ready, but your wolf is rising and she will not be denied." Thalia pulled her to her feet. "There is a gathering tonight at Shadowkeep Castle. The Alpha King holds court once a month, where wolves from across his territory come to pledge loyalty and settle disputes. You will attend." "He'll reject me." "You heard him in the dream." "Dreams are where we hide our truths, child. But reality has a way of overwhelming even the strongest denials." Thalia's smile was mysterious. "Besides, you are not going to beg for acceptance. You are going to show him exactly what a first wolf can do." That evening, dressed in a gown of midnight blue that Thalia had somehow procured, Elara stood before the gates of Shadowkeep Castle. The structure rose from the forest like a living shadow, towers of black stone that seemed to absorb light, walls covered in silver runes that pulsed with protective magic. Her wolf stirred, excited and nervous. "Our mate is inside," she whispered. "He will know us, he will accept us." Elara wished she shared that certainty. The gates opened, and a guard, a massive wolf whose eyes glowed amber, studied her with suspicion. "State your business." "I am Elara Ashwood, and I seek an audience with the Alpha King." The guard's expression shifted to shock. "The Ashwood girl, the one who was rejected at the bonding ceremony?" Word traveled fast in the supernatural world. "Yes," Elara said, lifting her chin. "That's me, and I'm not leaving until I speak with him." The guard hesitated, then gestured for her to follow. "The king will decide your fate." As Elara stepped through the gates into Shadowkeep, her wolf surged forward with joy and anticipation. Inside the great hall, surrounded by hundreds of powerful wolves, sat Kael Thorne on a throne of black stone and silver. And when his eyes met hers across the crowded room, the bond between them ignited like wildfire. The great hall of Shadowkeep fell silent as Elara entered, every wolf present turning to assess the newcomer. The air thrummed with supernatural energy, alphas, betas, warriors, all radiating power that would have crushed her weeks ago. Now, her own wolf rose to meet their challenge unafraid, but it was Kael Thorne who commanded her attention. In the flesh, he was even more formidable than in dreams. He sat upon his throne with the stillness of a predator, his silver eyes tracking her every movement. He wore black leather and steel, his dark hair pulled back to reveal sharp features that might have been handsome if not for the cold authority etched into every line. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, a reminder that even kings bled. "Elara Ashwood," his voice carried across the hall, deep and resonant. "You dare enter my territory uninvited?" "I dare many things, Your Majesty." Elara forced herself to walk forward, her spine straight despite the weight of hundreds of stairs, including seeking refuge from those who would see me destroyed. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Kael's expression remained unreadable. "You were rejected by Cassius Blackthorne at your bonding ceremony." It wasn't a question. "The entire kingdom speaks of little else. The wolfless Ashwood girl who caused windows to shatter with her scream." "I am not wolfless." Elara stopped at the base of the dais, tilting her head back to meet his gaze. "I never was. My wolf was merely sleeping, and now she's awake." Kael leaned forward slightly, his nostrils flaring. "Even from this distance, She saw his hands tighten on the throne's armrests. "Your scent. It's been haunting me for days. As yours has haunted me." The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, excited and speculative. Silence. Kael's single word cut through the noise like a blade. He stood descending the dais steps with predatory grace. "Everyone out. Now." "But your majesty, the petitions," an advisor began, "are postponed." Kael's eyes never left Elara's. "Leave us." The hall emptied quickly, wolves filing out with backward glances and whispered speculation. Within moments, only Elara and Kael remained, the vast space suddenly feeling far too intimate. He circled her slowly, and she forced herself to remain still, to not show the way her heart raced or how her wolf preened under his attention. "You smell like wild jasmine and moonlight," he said quietly. "And underneath that, something ancient, something that calls to the wolf I haven't been able to reach in 27 years. Thalia says we're true mates." Elara turned to keep him in her sight. "That my awakening is breaking your curse." "Thalia." Kael's mouth curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "That meddling keeper has been trying to cure me for decades. I should have known she'd find some new theory to pursue." "It's not a theory. You feel it too, the bond trying to form." "What I feel." Kael stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could see silver flecks in his eyes. "Is dangerous. Bonds make you vulnerable. They give your enemies leverage. I have ruled the Shadow Court through strength and fear, never showing weakness. A mate would be the ultimate weakness, or the ultimate strength." Elara met his gaze steadily. "You've survived alone for 27 years, but have you truly lived?" His hand shot out, catching her chin, not roughly but firmly. "You know nothing of my life, little wolf. Nothing of the sacrifices I've made, the enemies I've crushed, the loneliness I've embraced to keep my kingdom safe. Then tell me." She didn't pull away from his touch. "Tell me why you're so afraid of this bond." For a moment something raw flickered across his features. Then his mask slammed back into place, and he released her, stepping back. "The curse was cast by Morgoth Bloodbane, alpha of the rival Shadow Fang pack. He wanted my territory, my throne. When he couldn't defeat me in combat, he hired a dark witch to bind my wolf, to trap her so deep inside me that I could never shift, never complete a mate bond, never produce heirs. He thought it would weaken me, make me vulnerable to challenge. But it didn't. No, I became harder, colder. I learned to rule through strategy and ruthlessness rather than supernatural dominance. I built an empire on human cunning and wolf instinct, even if I couldn't access the latter fully." His jaw tightened. "And I accepted that I would rule alone, die alone, and let my kingdom pass to my sister's children. Until I appeared. Until you appeared, smelling like salvation and promising to break a curse that has defined my entire adult life." Kael's laugh was bitter. "Do you understand what that means? If the curse breaks, if I can shift again, everything changes. My enemies will see it as weakness, the great Alpha King finally succumbing to the mate bond. They'll come for you, for me, for everything I've built. Let them come." Elara's wolf surged forward, lending strength to her voice. "I am not some fragile thing to be protected and hidden away. I am a first wolf, Kael. My bloodline predates your kingdom, predates the pacts and territories and politics. I am not asking for your protection. I'm offering partnership." Something ignited in Kael's eyes, interest, desire, and something that might have been hope. Before he could respond, the hall's doors burst open. A wolf stumbled in, bleeding from multiple wounds, his eyes wild with panic. "Your Majesty, the borders. Shadow Fang Pack is attacking the eastern territories." Kael's entire demeanor shifted, becoming the warrior king. "How many?" "At least 50 warriors led by Morgoth himself. They're burning villages, killing anyone who resists." The messenger swayed, and Elara moved instinctively to steady him. They say they've come to claim what's rightfully theirs now that you've been weakened by a mate bond." Kael's expression turned murderous. "They heard about you. News travels fast in the supernatural world," Elara said grimly. "They think I make you vulnerable. They're not entirely wrong." Kael was already moving toward the armory, his movements efficient and deadly. "A newly formed bond is unstable. If they kill you, the backlash could destroy me. If they capture you, they have leverage. Then we don't let them do either." Elara followed him. "Let me fight." "Absolutely not. You've barely begun to access your wolf. You'd be slaughtered." "I am stronger than you think." Kael spun to face her. and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes, not for himself but for her. "I cannot lose you. Not when I've just found you." The admission hung between them, raw and honest. "Then don't lose me." Elara stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart. "Fight beside me. Trust that I am strong enough to stand with you, not behind you." For a long moment Kael stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. "Thalia has been training you? Every day. Then prove it." He pulled a blade from the armory wall, tossing it to her. She caught it easily, her wolf's reflexes sharp. "We ride in 5 minutes. Try not to die, little wolf. I'd hate to lose my mate before I've even properly claimed her." The ride to the eastern border was brutal. Wolves running in their animal forms while Elara rode beside Kael on horseback, her incomplete transformation not yet allowing her to shift fully. The forest blurred past, and she could feel the bond between them strengthening with proximity, with shared purpose. They crested a hill to see the battle below, Shadowfang warriors tearing through Kael's border guards, fire consuming wooden structures, screams piercing the night. And at the center of the chaos stood Morgath Bloodbane, a massive wolf in his prime, his black fur streaked with silver, his eyes burning with malicious triumph. "Kael Thorne!" Morgath's voice boomed across the battlefield. "Come face me, cursed king. Let's see if your new mate has made you stronger, or simply given me the weapon I need to destroy you." Kael's hand found Elara's, squeezing once. "Stay close. Watch my back. And if I fall, you won't fall." Elara's wolf surged forward, and she felt power flooding her veins. Ancient, primal, unstoppable. "We won't let you." Together, they charged into battle. Kael fought like a demon. Even without his wolf, he was devastating. His blade sang through the air, finding throats and hearts with brutal efficiency. But Elara could see the strain, the way he compensated for the supernatural strength he couldn't access. She moved to his left, her own blade flashing. Her wolf guided her movements, lending speed and instinct she'd never possessed. An enemy lunged, she sidestepped and struck. Another attacked from behind. She spun and parried. "The girl!" Morgath's roar cut through the chaos. "Take the girl!" 3 warriors broke from the main battle, converging on Elara. She raised her blade, her wolf snarling, and then something inside her shattered. Power exploded outward, silver light blazing from her skin. The attacking wolves were thrown backward, and Elara felt her body beginning to change. Not a full shift, but something between, her eyes glowing pure silver, her nails extending into claws, her senses sharpening to supernatural levels. "Impossible," Morgath breathed. "A first wolf. The legends are true." Elara looked at Kael and saw wonder in his eyes, and something else, his own wolf, rising to meet hers, the curse cracking under the weight of their bond. "Together," she said. "Together," Kael agreed. And as they turned to face Morgath and his warriors, the Alpha King's eyes began to glow with silver light that matched his mate's. The curse was breaking, and the Shadow Court's enemies were about to learn what happened when you threatened a true mate bond. The battle ended not with Morgath's death but with his retreat, when Kael's eyes blazed silver, the first sign of his wolf stirring in 27 years. The Shadowfang Alpha had recognized the shift in power. A cursed king was one thing. A true mate bond awakening between an Alpha King and a first wolf was another entirely. Morgath had withdrawn his forces, but not before issuing a promise that echoed across the battlefield. "This isn't over, Thorne. That bond makes you weak, and I will exploit it." Now 3 days later, Elara stood in Shadowkeep's war room, surrounded by maps and battle reports, feeling the weight of what her presence had unleashed. "The eastern border is secure, but Shadowfang has been recruiting," reported Commander Riker, Kael's most trusted warrior. His eyes kept drifting to Elara with a mixture of respect and wariness. "Morgath is spreading word that the Alpha King has been compromised by a mate bond. Smaller packs are watching, waiting to see if we show weakness. Then we show strength." Kael's voice was steel. He stood at the head of the table, every inch the warrior king, but Elara could see the tension in his shoulders. The partial awakening of his wolf had been agonizing, like a limb regaining feeling after years of numbness, every sensation overwhelming. "Your Majesty," another advisor spoke carefully, "perhaps if the girl were to leave—" "Her name is Elara." Kael's tone dropped to something dangerous. "And she stays." The advisor paled. "Of course. I only meant—" "I know what you meant." Kael's silver eyes swept the room. You all think the bond makes me vulnerable. You're not entirely wrong, but what you fail to understand is that Elara's power is breaking my curse. When it fully shatters, I will be stronger than I've ever been. We will be stronger. If the curse breaks, Riker said quietly, forgive me, Your Majesty, but dark magic doesn't release its hold easily. The partial awakening could be as far as it goes, and in the meantime, Lady Elara is a target. Elara had remained silent throughout the meeting, but now she spoke. I can defend myself. Against 3 warriors, perhaps. Riker's tone wasn't dismissive, merely factual. But Morgoth will send assassins, entire packs if necessary. You're powerful, Lady Elara, but you're untrained in real combat. The battle at the border was chaos. You survived on instinct and luck. Then train me. Elara met his gaze steadily. I won't hide behind walls while others fight my battles. If I'm to be the Alpha King's mate, I need to be worthy of that position. Kael's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Riker, you'll oversee her training personally. Dawn to dusk, no mercy. Riker bowed. As you command. As the meeting dispersed, Kael caught Elara's arm, guiding her toward his private chambers. The castle's corridors were built of black stone veined with silver, lit by torches that burned with blue flame. Magic that never consumed the wood, never needed tending. You don't have to prove yourself to them, Kael said once they were alone in his study, a room lined with ancient texts and weapons that told the story of his reign. Don't I? Elara moved to the window, looking out over the eternal forest. They see me as a weakness, a pretty distraction that's put their king in danger. They're afraid of change. Kael came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. For 27 years I've been unchanging. Cold, controlled, predictable. You've disrupted that in a matter of days. Do you regret it? The question came out softer than she intended. The bond forming? Kael was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a vulnerability she'd never heard before. I've spent my entire adult life believing I would be alone. I built my identity around that isolation, convinced myself it was strength rather than survival. And then you walked into my hall smelling like salvation, and everything I'd accepted as immutable truth began to crumble. He turned to face her fully, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Do I regret it? No. Am I terrified? Absolutely. Because for the first time in decades I have something to lose. Someone who matters more than strategy or territory, or even my own life. Elara's breath caught. Kael, I'm not good at this, he continued, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. At feelings, at vulnerability, at being anything other than the Alpha King. But you make me want to try. You make me want to be more than the curse that's defined me. She covered his hand with hers. Then let's break it. Completely. Thalia says the bond needs to be fully accepted by both of us, not just acknowledged but embraced. We need to complete the mate bond ritual. Kael's eyes darkened with desire and something deeper. That ritual is sacred, permanent. Once completed, we're bound for life. Our souls intertwined, our wolves merged. There's no undoing it. I know. Elara stepped closer until they were breath apart. I'm choosing this, Kael. Choosing you. Not because I'm desperate or have nowhere else to go, but because my wolf recognizes yours. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally becoming who I was always meant to be. His control cracked. Kael pulled her against him, his mouth claiming hers in a kiss that was both fierce and reverent. Power sparked between them, silver light that made the air itself shimmer. Elara's wolf surged forward, meeting his, and she felt the curse straining, cracking further under the weight of their connection. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. The full moon is in 3 days, Kael said, his voice rough. We'll perform the ritual then, under Thalia's guidance. But until that time, you train. You learn to fight, to defend yourself, to be the warrior queen this kingdom needs. Warrior queen? Elara raised an eyebrow. Did you think I'd settle for anything less? Kael's smile was genuine, transforming his harsh features into something almost beautiful. You're a first wolf, Elara. You're meant to rule, not hide. The next 3 days were brutal. Riker proved to be a merciless instructor, pushing Elara past every limit she thought she had. He taught her to channel her wolf's strength without fully shifting, to move with supernatural speed, to anticipate attacks before they came. Her body accumulated bruises and cuts, but each day she grew stronger, faster, more confident. Thalia visited daily, guiding her through meditation that helped her communicate with her wolf, teaching her the ancient ways of the first wolves, how they'd walked between worlds, how their power had been both gift and curse. Your ancestors were feared, Thalia explained as they sat in Shadowkeep's garden, surrounded by night-blooming flowers. Not because they were cruel, but because they were uncontrollable. They answered to no alpha, no pack law, no authority but their own. That's why the bloodlines were sealed, to protect the supernatural world from power it couldn't contain. But I don't feel uncontrollable, Elara said. I feel balanced, like my wolf and I are finally in harmony, because you have a mate. Thalia's mismatched eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge. The first wolves were solitary by nature, but when they found true mates, they became unstoppable. Two souls perfectly balanced, two powers perfectly merged. That's what you and Kael will become. On the evening before the full moon, a messenger arrived from Silvercrest. Elara was in the training yard, sparring with Riker, when Kael appeared at the edge of the ring. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could feel tension through their forming bond. What's wrong? Your mother is here. She's requesting an audience. Elara's stomach dropped. She hadn't spoken to her family since the night of her humiliation. What does she want? To see you. To apologize, apparently. Kael's tone suggested he didn't believe it. You don't have to see her. I can send her away. Elara was tempted. But she'd spent too many years running from difficult conversations. No, I'll see her. But you're coming with me. Lady Ashwood looked diminished in Shadowkeep's receiving room, her usual imperious bearing replaced by something that might have been shame. She stood as Elara entered, her eyes widening at the transformation in her daughter. Elara wore leather training gear, her hair pulled back in a warrior's braid, her posture radiating confidence that had never been there before. She looked like what she was, a wolf coming into her power. Elara, Lady Ashwood's voice cracked. You look different. I am different. Elara remained standing, Kael a solid presence at her side. What do you want, Mother? I came to apologize. For the seal, for suppressing your wolf, for pushing you toward Cassius when I knew he would never truly value you. Tears gathered in her eyes. I was afraid. Your grandmother tried to tell me what you were, what you could become, but I was terrified of losing you to that power, so I bound it, thinking I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself, Elara said quietly, from having a daughter who might outshine you, who might be more than you could control. Lady Ashwood flinched but didn't deny it. Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. She looked at Kael, then back to Elara. The entire kingdom is talking about you, about how you're the Alpha King's true mate, how you're a first wolf, how you fought at the border battle. They say you're going to be queen of the Shadow Court. I haven't decided what I'm going to be yet, Elara said, but whatever I choose, it will be my choice. Not yours, not Cassius's, not anyone's but mine. I understand. Lady Ashwood reached into her cloak, pulling out a small wooden box. Your grandmother wanted you to have this when your wolf awakened. I've been keeping it all these years. Elara took the box, opening it to reveal a silver circlet, delicate but strong, engraved with runes that pulsed with soft light. It belonged to the first Ashwood Alpha, Lady Ashwood explained, a queen who ruled before packs and territories, when wolves were still wild and free. Grandmother said you would need it when you claimed your true place in the world. Elara lifted the circlet, feeling power thrumming through the metal. Her wolf purred with recognition. Thank you, she said finally, for bringing this, for apologizing, but I can't forgive you yet. Maybe someday, but not today. Lady Ashwood nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I wanted you to know that I see you now, the real you, and she's magnificent. After her mother left, Elara stood holding the circlet, feeling the weight of legacy and choice. You don't have to wear it, Kael said softly. You don't have to be queen if you don't want that burden. Elara turned to him, seeing the hope and fear warring in his eyes. What do you want? I want you. However you choose to be. Warrior, queen, simply my mate. I want you beside me, challenging me, making me better than I am alone. He took her hands. Tomorrow night, under the full moon, we complete the bond, and then we face whatever comes together. Elara smiled, feeling certainty settle into her bones. Together. She placed the circlet on her head, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting centuries for her to claim it. The wolfless girl was gone. In her place stood a first wolf, a true mate, and a future queen who had chosen her own destiny. 6 months later, the Shadow Court had transformed under Elara's influence, though she would have laughed at anyone who suggested she'd done it intentionally. She stood now on the balcony of Shadowkeep's royal chambers, watching the sun rise over the eternal forest. The view never failed to steal her breath, ancient trees stretching to the horizon, morning mist clinging to the canopy like silver silk, the distant mountains standing sentinel over a kingdom that had become her home. Behind her she felt Kael wake, the bond between them humming with warmth and contentment. 6 months since the full moon ritual that had shattered his curse completely. 6 months since she'd become not just his mate, but his queen. And still, every morning felt like a small miracle. "You're up early." Kael's voice was rough with sleep, as his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Couldn't sleep. Too much to think about. Elara leaned into his embrace, feeling his wolf purr contentedly against hers, a sensation that still amazed her. The curse's breaking had been agonizing but transcendent. Kael's wolf finally freed after 27 years of imprisonment. Now they ran together through the forest on full moon nights, two souls perfectly synchronized. The council meeting. Kael pressed a kiss to her temple. "You know they're going to approve your proposal. You've won them all over." Elara smiled. The Shadow Court's council had been skeptical of her at first, a young queen with unconventional ideas about pack law and territory management, but she'd proven herself not through dominance, but through wisdom, listening to their concerns while gently pushing for changes that benefited everyone. Her latest proposal would establish safe houses throughout the kingdom for wolves who'd been rejected or exiled from their packs, wolves like she'd once been, powerless and alone. It would be funded through a tax on the wealthiest packs, redistributing resources to those who needed them most. "Lord Thaddeus still opposes it," Elara said. "He thinks it encourages weakness. Lord Thaddeus is an old wolf stuck in old ways." Kael's tone held amusement. "And even he can't deny that the kingdom has prospered under our joint rule. Trade agreements with neighboring territories have doubled, border conflicts have decreased, and our people feel safer than they have in decades." It was true. The bond between an alpha king and a first wolf queen had proven to be exactly what the Shadow Court needed. Kael's strategic brilliance balanced by Elara's compassion, his strength tempered by her wisdom. "Besides," Kael continued, turning her to face him, "you're not the uncertain girl who stumbled into my hall 6 months ago. You're a queen who commands respect through action, not just title. They'll approve your proposal because it's brilliant, and because you've earned their trust." Elara studied her mate's face, still marveling at the changes in him. The cold, isolated king had softened without losing his strength, learning to lead with both power and heart. He smiled more now, laughed occasionally, and had even begun to trust others with responsibilities he'd once hoarded. "I love you," she said simply. His silver eyes, no longer haunted by curse or loneliness, blazed with emotion. "And I love you, my fierce little wolf. Now come back to bed. We have an hour before the council meeting, and I can think of much better ways to spend it than worrying." The council meeting went exactly as Kael predicted. After 2 hours of debate, the proposal passed with only 2 dissenting votes. Lord Thaddeus grumbled, but ultimately acknowledged that the Queen's previous initiatives had proven successful. As the council dispersed, Commander Riker approached with a knowing smile. "You've done it again, Your Majesty. Won them over without them even realizing they've been won." Elara laughed. "I learned from the best. Kael taught me that true power isn't about domination. It's about making people want to follow you. He's changed too, you know." Riker's expression grew serious. "Before you, he was a great king, but a lonely one. Now he's both great and whole. The entire kingdom feels it." That afternoon, Elara visited the first of the safe houses, a converted manor on the edge of Shadowkeep that now housed 15 wolves who'd been rejected by their packs for various reasons. Wolfless omegas, disabled warriors, elderly wolves whose families had abandoned them. "Your Majesty!" A young girl, no more than 12, ran up to her, eyes shining. "Look, my wolf finally emerged last night." Elara knelt, genuine joy flooding through her. "That's wonderful. Tell me everything." As the girl chattered excitedly about her first shift, Elara felt the rightness of this path. She'd been that girl once, desperate for acceptance, terrified of remaining powerless forever. Now she could offer hope to others like her. Later, as she walked through Shadowkeep's gardens with Thalia, the old keeper smiled with satisfaction. "You found your purpose." I've found several purposes. Elara touched the silver circlet that had become her constant companion, the crown of the first wolf queens. Mate, queen, protector of the vulnerable. It's more than I ever imagined. And yet exactly what you were meant for. Thalia's mismatched eyes gleamed. The first wolves were never meant to rule through fear or dominance. They were meant to be bridges, between human and beast, between power and compassion, between the old ways and new possibilities. You embody that perfectly. I had good teachers. Elara squeezed the old woman's hand. Thank you, Thalia, for seeing what I could become when I couldn't see it myself. That evening brought unexpected visitors. Elara was in the training yard, sparring with Riker as she did most evenings, when a commotion at the gates drew their attention. A delegation from Silvercrest had arrived, and at its head stood a figure that made Elara's wolf growl with recognition. Cassius Blackthorne. He looked diminished somehow, his usual arrogance replaced by something that might have been humility. Beside him stood Vivian Nightshade, though Elara noted they weren't touching, no warmth in their proximity. Kael appeared at Elara's side instantly, his wolf rising protectively. Blackthorne, you have nerve coming here. I come under flag of truce, Your Majesty. Cassius bowed, a gesture of respect he'd never shown before. I seek an audience with Queen Elara. Anything you have to say to my mate you can say in front of me, Kael growled. Of course. Cassius's eyes finally met Elara's, and she saw genuine regret there. I came to apologize for the humiliation, for the cruelty, for failing to see your worth when it was right in front of me. A bit late for apologies, Elara said coolly. I know, but I needed to say it anyway. Cassius glanced at Vivienne, whose expression was carefully blank. Our bonding was a disaster. Turns out that relationships built on ambition and superficiality don't actually work. We've dissolved the arrangement. I'm sorry to hear that, Elara said, and meant it. She felt no satisfaction in their failure, only a distant pity. Don't be. It taught me what I should have known all along, that power and status mean nothing without genuine connection. Cassius took a breath. You were right that night in the library. I was cruel because I was afraid. Afraid of being tied to someone the pack would see as weak, afraid of what it would mean for my reputation. I chose pride over compassion, and I've regretted it every day since. What do you want, Cassius? Elara asked quietly. Forgiveness? Absolution? Neither. I don't deserve them. He straightened. I want to pledge the Blackthorne Pack's allegiance to the Shadow Court, to you and King Kael. I've watched what you've built here. A kingdom that values strength but also compassion, that protects the vulnerable while honoring warriors. It's what our world should be. Elara looked at Kael, who raised an eyebrow. The decision was hers. She studied Cassius for a long moment, remembering the pain of that night in the Grand Lunar Hall, the humiliation that had ultimately led to her awakening. Without his rejection, she might never have fled to the Eternal Forest, never have met Kael, never have discovered her true nature. I accept your pledge, she said finally, not because I've forgiven you, that will take time, but because I believe in second chances, and because the kingdom is stronger united than divided. Relief flooded Cassius's features. He knelt, and Vivienne followed suit. Thank you, Your Majesty. You are a far better queen than I would have been an alpha. As they rose and were escorted to guest quarters, Kael pulled Elara close. You continue to surprise me. I learned from my mate that true strength includes mercy. She smiled up at him. Besides, holding on to anger only hurts the one carrying it. I'd rather focus on building our future than dwelling on the past. That night, as they lay tangled together in their chambers, Kael's hand drifted to Elara's stomach, where a small but significant change had begun. I can smell it, you know, he said softly. The new life growing inside you. Elara's breath caught. She'd suspected for a week, but hadn't been certain. You're sure? Positive. My wolf recognizes our pup. His eyes glowed silver with joy and wonder. We're going to be parents. Tears gathered in Elara's eyes. Happy tears this time. I was so afraid I'd never have this. A mate who loves me, a home where I belong, a future full of possibility. You have all of that and more. Kael kissed her deeply. You have a kingdom that adores you, a mate who would burn the world for you, and now a child who will be born from the strongest bond our kind has ever known. A child who will grow up knowing they're loved for who they are, not what they can provide, Elara added. Who will learn that true strength includes compassion, that power is meant to protect, not dominate. A child who will have the most remarkable mother in any realm. Kael's hand splayed protectively over her stomach, and who will never doubt their worth for a single moment. As Elara drifted towards sleep, wrapped in her mate's arms and surrounded by the life they'd built together, she thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago. Broken, humiliated, certain she had no value. That girl had been wrong. She'd always had value. She'd always been strong. She'd simply needed the right circumstances to bloom, to be planted in soil that nourished rather than restricted, to be given sunlight instead of shadow, to be loved for her true self rather than tolerated for her bloodline. The curse that had seemed like Kael's fate had actually been the path to both their destinies. His isolation had prepared him to appreciate true connection. Her rejection had freed her to discover real power. And their bond had proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from choosing to stand together. Outside, the full moon rose over the eternal forest, bathing Shadowkeep in silver light. And in the royal chambers, a first wolf queen and her alpha king held each other close, dreaming of the future they would build, for themselves, for their child, and for a kingdom that had learned to flourish under the rule of love as much as power. The wolfless girl was gone forever, replaced by a queen who had chosen her own fate and found that it was more magnificent than any destiny that could have been imposed upon her. She had bloomed exactly where she was planted, and the entire supernatural world was better for it. If you enjoyed this story of transformation, true mates, and finding strength in unexpected places, please subscribe for more paranormal romance tales. Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from our listeners. Where are you listening from today? Until next time, may you always have the courage to embrace your true nature, no matter how long it's been sleeping.